Take my daughter off this plane if you want, but she'll lose the only chance to survive." Rowan's voice never rose above a whisper, yet every passenger heard him. His sick daughter clung to his arm, confused by the shouting around them. No one knew that the next 10 minutes would expose the biggest mistake anyone on that aircraft had ever made. Rowan sat near the back of the aircraft, gently wiping spilled juice from his daughter's sweater with a handful of napkins. Ivy had apologized 3 times, but her trembling hands refused to stay steady. The medication she had taken before boarding often left her anxious and restless. Rowan never looked embarrassed. He simply smiled, cleaned the small mess, and quietly handed her a bottle of water. His old brown jacket had faded from years of wear, but it was carefully cleaned. Every dollar during the past year had gone toward hospital visits, specialists, and finally, one experimental treatment that offered a small chance of saving Ivy's life. Missing today's flight wasn't an inconvenience. It could cost them everything. Several rows ahead, a businessman named Richard noticed the commotion. Accustomed to private lounges and first-class cabins, he had already spent the entire boarding process complaining about delays. Ivy's nervous movements became the final irritation. He pressed the call button. When a flight attendant approached, Richard lowered his voice just enough to sound controlled. With cold confidence, he insisted the father clearly couldn't control his child and claimed the disturbance was affecting other passengers. Then, he demanded that airport security remove them before departure. The flight attendant hesitated. Ivy wasn't screaming, and she wasn't running through the aisle. She was simply frightened. Still, Richard refused to let the matter go. Within moments, another crew member joined the discussion. Nearby passengers began turning around. Rowan understood exactly what was happening. He slowly stood up, keeping one reassuring hand on Ivy's shoulder. Without anger, he quietly explained that his daughter was seriously ill and that they were traveling for medical treatment. Richard answered with a dismissive laugh. His expression never softened. According to him, everyone had excuses. Rules were rules. If someone couldn't travel without disturbing others, they shouldn't be flying at all. Ivy lowered her head. She was watching her father. The same fear she had carried through months of hospitals returned to her eyes. Rowan gently squeezed her hand. Inside, however, another fear was growing. If they were removed from this flight, the hospital had already warned him that the next available appointment for the procedure might not come for several months. Months Ivy simply didn't have. The cabin suddenly became much quieter. 2 airport security officers stepped through the aircraft door. They exchanged a few words with the crew about Rowan and his daughter. Rowan closed his eyes for a brief second. He wasn't thinking about himself anymore. He was only wondering how he would explain to his little girl that Hope had slipped away just a few feet before takeoff. Captain Mercer walked slowly toward Rowan, but before saying a single word, he removed his pilot's cap. The entire cabin watched in confusion as the veteran captain stopped beside the exhausted father and, with tears already filling his eyes, wrapped him in a firm embrace. Then Captain turned toward us, were the passengers. With a steady but emotional voice, he said that 10 years earlier, during a military rescue mission, their helicopter had crashed deep inside a mountain valley. Most of the crew believed no one could survive. But one soldier ignored every order to stay back. That soldier was Rowan. Despite suffering serious injuries himself, he crawled through burning wreckage and pulled Captain Mercer to safety just seconds before the helicopter exploded. He never accepted a medal. He never asked for recognition. After recovering, he quietly returned to civilian life and disappeared. Captain Mercer looked directly at the businessman who had demanded Rowan's removal. "The man you called a failure is the reason I'm alive today." Silence swept through the aircraft. The businessman suddenly seemed much smaller than he had only minutes earlier. His confident expression disappeared as every passenger slowly turned toward him. Across the aisle, Ivy looked up at her father with confused eyes. "Dad, what is he talking about?" Rowan gently smiled, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. It was a long time ago. Captain Mercer shook his head. No, Rowan. Heroes like you spend too much of their lives pretending nothing happened. The cabin crew immediately canceled the security request. Instead, they quietly moved Rowan and Ivy to 2 empty seats in first class, not because of status, but because everyone on board suddenly understood who truly deserved respect. As Ivy settled into her new seat, a flight attendant carefully handed her a small, plush airplane. Another passenger quietly offered to cover every meal during the flight. Someone else asked whether the hospital needed financial support. Without being asked, kindness began moving through the cabin, one person after another. The businessman remained standing in the aisle. Finally, he walked toward Rowan. For the first time that day, there was no arrogance in his voice, only shame. With trembling hands, he admitted he had judged a man without knowing anything about his life. He apologized not only to Rowan, but also to Ivy. Rowan could have humiliated him in return. Instead, he simply nodded. Quietly, he said, "The easiest thing in the world is judging someone you don't know." Then he looked at his daughter. "I just hope next time you'll ask before you decide who someone is." Those words echoed through the cabin far louder than any argument could have. Months later, Ivy's experimental treatment succeeded beyond everyone's expectations. Her strength slowly returned. For the first time in years, she could run through a park without stopping to catch her breath. Captain Mercer stayed in touch with the family, calling Rowan not a hero, but a brother. The businessman changed as well. He later funded travel assistance for families whose children needed life-saving medical care, admitting that one flight had forced him to rethink everything he believed about success. Sometimes, the strongest people are the ones no one notices. The oldest jacket may hide the bravest heart, and the quiet man sitting at the back of the plane may have already saved more lives than the loudest person in first class. If this story reminded you never to judge someone by appearances, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes kindness can change the world. Sometimes, one moment of compassion is enough to rewrite someone else's entire story.